Martin Luther King said, "Perhaps the greatest sin in life is knowing right and not doing it." It had been 2 weeks since I had seen my dad due to lockdown. He had lived with us for 3.5 years. And I walk in the door and I see my 77-year-old all-American father, but it's not him. See, my dad had been an all-American. He still did 50 push-ups and sit-ups a day. And he's in a wheelchair. And he's slumped over. He can't, he's not looking up. Dad? Hey, Dad, it's me, it's Eric. Dad, can you hear me? Dad? And my wife, she gets down on all fours. And she crawls up to him on her hands and her knees. And she looks up like this so that she can look at him, because he can only look down because he couldn't move. And it was at that moment I heard the last words I ever heard my father speak, when he saw her eyes. "You're alive. You're alive." See, for 2 weeks he had been in solitary confinement in a geriatric hospital that's supposed to be helping him. But instead, he was unshaven, he was unshowered, and he was unable to move because he had so many medications in him. And yet they had the gall to say he won't eat. Well, how the hell do you eat when you can't lift your head and when you can't open your mouth? And when I left there that day, I was just heartbroken seeing what's happened to him. But a week later, I get a phone call from the same facility, and they said, "Mr. Couch, your father had a fall. We're going to send him to the doctor." It was like 9:30 in the morning. I'm like, okay, falls happen. So I go to the hospital, and they send me up to the ICU, and they're like, it's not good. He has bleeding on the brain. He's completely malnourished. He's dehydrated. He's not had any food or any water or anything, and he's so incredibly over-medicated. We're not sure he's going to make it. And the fact is, he never spoke again. And I remember walking in and I saw my dad. And I was like, nobody will ever do this to you again. We're either walking out of here together, or I'm with you till the Lord takes you home. But I'm not leaving. And for 3.5 weeks, I was there with him. And fortunately, we're now in the ICU, and it happens to be one of the best ICUs in the city, probably in the country. And the ICU being the best people in the hospital. I mean, they were fabulous. And yet one night, and Dad hadn't slept, and he's really agitated because all the drugs they trying to detox him, and he's really strong, like stronger than I am today at 77 and in the hospital. So they've got him tied down, right? So he can't move. And he hadn't slept. He had been awake and just mumbling for 4 days now, 24/7. And about 3 a.m, we finally fell asleep. Like we were finally asleep. I'm on the couch, he's in the bed, lights are out, and all of a sudden the lights come on. And this male nurse walks in the room, and he's checking on my dad, doesn't say a word, looks at him, sees a loose EKG on his chest, and rips it out. And my dad wakes up, kind of like that, trying to hit the guy, because he just had a chunk of hair ripped out of his chest at 3 a.m. after he had fallen asleep. And I kid you not, the male nurse said, "Wow, he's aggressive." What the hell do you think? He's finally fallen asleep after a week. You just ripped a chunk out of his hair after flipping the lights on when he's trying to sleep. And that's when it hit me, right? This massive disconnect that we have. See, what's wild is, like, I'd had him in a facility where we were paying $9,000 a month, and yet there were issues. And then we had to move him to a Medicaid facility because he had run out of money. And of course, it wasn't the best because it is a Medicaid facility, and yet there were issues. And then we have him in one of the top hospitals in the city, in the ICU unit, which is the best of the best, and yet there were issues. And the reality is, no matter where your family members are and the people that you love, somebody's got to be there to be the advocate for them. We all need an advocate. It doesn't matter how old we are. We need someone looking out for us. And I guarantee you, everybody in this room, if you don't have a story yet, you will. In fact, how many people do have a story about having to take care of someone or getting to take care of someone that they loved, right? We all have a story. And that's when I was like, there's got to be a better way. And as I sat there and watched, I'm thinking and I'm going, and it just hit me. You know, the cure to this disconnect, and I came up with a formula. And I kind of joke about it. The best way to love a senior is to trip them. And people are like, trip them? I was like, yeah, the best way to love a senior is just to trip them. And they're like, okay, that's got to mean something else. And, you know, the reality is it does. So T is to talk. And what happened is when that nurse came in the room, he never said a word. And that happens so often because we all get busy, right? That nurse was super busy with his job. But for years, Dad lived with me and I was too busy. Why? Because when I was growing up, my dad was too busy. But you know what? I was wrong. So we don't need to get too busy to just talk and interact with people. The R is respect. My dad demanded respect. And the fact is, seniors deserve respect. So just asking, you know, telling them what you're doing and being respectful, even if they can't respond. The third is talk, respect, inform. Right? If you've got to do something right, if they have to give them a shot or they got to take blood, like that may hurt. And when my dad was tied down, if somebody tried to do that, he'd come swinging. But when I told him, hey, talk, respect, inform, let him know what's going on. Let him know if it's going to hurt. Right? Isn't that what you would want? Just let me know if it's going to hurt. Well, it's amazing. He went from this aggressive guy that, I kid you not, and the reason they had him tied down is because he had punched a lady in the throat. I mean, like, he was aggressive. But it was incredible, even though he couldn't communicate, when they started doing this, especially the inform part and the respect, and then the last is permission. When they started doing this, he went from, even when they're given a shot or taking blood, being this aggressive guy of what are you doing, to he's like a tough little soldier. He's like, hurt. But now we were on the same team, right? Because they asked permission. Mr. Couch, this may hurt for a second, but I'll count to 3 and you know, the reality is, even if someone can't talk, it's a proven fact that they hear us. So that's why we want to talk affirmatively over them and tell them how much we love them. Even though they can't respond back, they can always hear. Talk, respect, inform, permission, trip. Right? It's the golden rule. This is why I do what I do. This is why I speak at places like this, because the world needs to hear. I do this for my dad, who's not around anymore. But I do it for everybody else's dad and mom who's been here, who's been down that road. Because I'm a senior advocate. It's who I am to my core. And the fact is, today at Medica Sur, we're all senior advocates. Right? We all get to be. If we'll just talk, respect, inform, permission, we can all be senior advocates. In fact, I think I want to do something. So I want everybody to raise your hand and repeat after me. I am a senior advocate. There you go. You're deputized. It's official. Now go spread the word. All right. And let's go.